The story starts with a wet dream of the weirdly drawn sister Nao Takanashi, who has long been trying to tempt her brother Shusuke into entering an immoral relationship with her. Hashtag Wincest. With Shusuke being your typical teenager juiced up with the horny hormone, he can barely resist, especially when Nao goes to great lengths for Shusuke to think of her perversely, by doing things that range from letting him purposely look underneath her skirt to walking out from the bath in a towel and dropping it by mistake in front of him, which gets him in trouble afterward. One day, while our boy is out on a walk, Nao goes to his room and searches for Shisuke's collection of educational magazines. And let me say, the dude has good taste. Nao then finds a hidden family photo album and is surprised to find out that there are no childhood pictures of her in it. Fast forward after Shusuke was finished being scolded about his culture collection, Nao confronts her parents about the album. They tell her the truth. 10 years prior, a car accident killed Nao's real parents and left Nao with memory loss. So Shusuke insisted on them adopting her into the family, where he vowed to care for and look after her as his sister. Nao, curiously enough, is more shocked by the fact that she and Shusuke are not blood related. In that instance, Nao realizes that a possible intimate relationship with him would be acceptable. As such, Nao requests Mama and Papa to keep the fact she learned the truth from Shusuke so that they can retain their sibling status. But, unbeknown to her, a short-stick twin-tailed trouble is standing on the doorsteps. Nao briefly spots a twin-tailed girl, similar to what appeared in Shusuke's photo album. At school that day, a girl named Iroha joins Nao's class and makes friends with Nao. While having a break, our boy goes to Nao's class and hands her a key because he's running late due to his quote-unquote cultural club activities, and then he leaves after saying hello to the new student. Iroha later comes to Shusuke, reintroducing herself as his childhood friend, and kisses him, proclaiming they are lovers due to the games of Doctor they played when they were young. Meanwhile, on the other end, Nao is having a frisky time with her stepbrother Clarinet. When he arrives back home, Shusuke plays the Naruto OST Sadness and Sorrow before throwing away all his porn, and his perverted nature, as well as leaving the Virgin Club, due to feeling ashamed of his past perversion. These actions cause Nao to grow concerned. It's revealed that somehow Iroha seems to know everything about his private life, like the times horny hour hits, and which hand he likes to use while shaking that ketchup bottle, making our boy very worried. And to make matters worse, she later blackmails him with threats of telling Nao about their games of Doctor. P.S. Turns out our boy liked them flat-chested. To quote him, "It's okay. I like the ones that fit the size of my hand." The next day, Iroha coerces Shusuke into going on a date with her, and Nao decides to follow them, while her friends, the blondie with big boobs and the black-haired hottie, decide to tail her as well. Iroha takes Shusuke to various places, including a movie theater, an arcade, and a swimsuit store. At the end of the date, Iroha tries to get Shusuke to kiss her, but he refuses. Iroha tries to drag him somewhere to blow off some steam, after his mini No Nut November experience, but Nao manages to bail him out. The next morning, Nao begins treating Shusuke coldly, leading him to realize that she knew about his date with Iroha. When Iroha scares Shusuke with the notion that she knows everything he's been doing, having been watching him through a telescope, Shusuke rolls on the floor when Nao enters, getting a look at her panties, which reawakens his normal perversion, much to Nao's delight. So, at night, he sneaks out to buy expensive educational material to enjoy, and to then offer it to the lads to let him back in the Virgins Club. Nao coerces Shusuke into going to the beach with her. Yes, gentlemen, we have reached the beach episode. Although the weirdly drawn characters and the shading lines on their arms might come off as a turnoff, and beach episodes are always welcomed. Back to the story. The step couple ends up running into the blondie and the other friend, who are very smoking hot in their swimsuits. Also, they meet Iroha, who Nao now recognizes as the twin-tailed girl from Shusuke's childhood photos. Nao and Iroha end up competing with each other for Shusuke's attention, though he mostly has eyes for the other two well-rounded girl bodies. As the competition gets more and more heated, our boy gets punished more and more, reaching the point of Nao accidentally knocking the main man unconscious with a rented boat, sending him to Dreamland to meet his favorite dummy-thick eroge character. Nao and Iroha compete with each other over who gets to perform mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and with every punch he receives IRL, he gets transported to a different setting with the character. Sadly, the dream ends with a kiss from one of the homies who hands him a magazine, and acts very sus regarding the kiss. At night, while running back from buying new reading material, Shusuke bumps into another person. They get their packages mixed up, and Shusuke ends up with a boys' love magazine that he immediately rips to shreds. This brings us to the other person, known as Mr. X. After discovering about the mix-up, they send Shusuke a threatening note, wrapped like a love letter, which is kinda twisted if you ask me, demanding their magazine return, freaking him the F out, and sending him running through the hallways until he collides with the class rep, who happens to be rocking some nice stockings that brightens his day a bit. Later that day, he goes to consult his virgin group about the situation, which turns out to be a big mistake, as we learn Mr. X is watching him, and he doesn't like what he sees. That night, when Shusuke attempts to make an exchange with Mr. X, using a different BL magazine, with Nao and Iroha stalking him, he learns Mr. X's true identity is that of his class rep, Mayuka. With the threat of his porn being shredded or shown to Nao, Shusuke agrees to become Mayuka's pet, assuming there will be erotic requests involved. The requests start simple, such as buying her a drink or trying her bento lunch. However, the next evening, Mayuka asks Shusuke to buy her a more extreme BL magazine she's too embarrassed to buy herself. He buys it, and she thanks him, gives him a head pat, and they enjoy a treat together, which surprisingly turned out to be very wholesome, putting her on the best girls spectrum for me. Anyways, back to the story. After having Iroha spy on Shusuke and Mayuka the previous night, Nao tries putting on black pantyhose and clinging onto Shusuke as he sleeps. Iroha and Mayuka later arrive, leading to an awkward confrontation IRL, while our boy cruises Dreamland with his wildest fantasies. Mayuka ends up questioning what Nao and Iroha see in a pervert like Shusuke, leading to her mentioning that her affection towards him is different from theirs, which in turn makes Nao think about it. Later that night, Mayuka gets Shusuke to read through one of her BL books, and as some of you might guess, when you force a certain fetish on someone who isn't diverse enough, it will end up traumatizing them just like what happened to our boy. The next morning, to purify his soul, Shusuke plans for a trip to Akihabara, along with his fellow men of culture, in search of adult goods, while Nao and Iroha decide to follow them. After visiting an adult DVD store, the group gets into an argument about their desired fetishes. Little kink shaming takes place, which is not very cash money, so they break off in search of their forbidden fruits, leaving Shusuke alone. However, they soon come to apologize to each other before going to a maid cafe, holding a little sister service, ending the trip with a lesson. Bros before horrific fetishes. Yeah. When Shusuke gets a report about him failing in all of his subjects, he then realizes that he has to take a follow-up exam, believing that she was the cause of Shusuke's grade for calling him out each night. Mayuka feels guilty and offers to help him study for an upcoming exam. But while they were studying, Nao and Iroha decide to intrude on them. As Mayuka tries to get Shusuke to study, Nao and Iroha compete to try and catch his attention, yet he only has eyes for his well-rounded classmate. Sometime later, Iroha presents surprise tickets for everyone to go to a local pool park, if he passed, which encourages Shusuke enough to pass. At the pool, Shusuke spends most of his time teaching Mayuka how to swim, leaving Nao and Iroha pretty jealous. During that time, Mayuka becomes amorously focused on Shusuke's nipples, having never seen a man naked before in real life, that is. As Nao tries to press Mayuka on her attention to Shusuke, he nearly drowns after Iroha forces him on a water slide, but is revived thanks to Mayuka's cardiac massage. Afterward, Mayuka leaves Shusuke a large list of BL books to buy while she is on holiday. Speaking about holidays, Shusuke goes to a Matsuri festival with Nao and Iroha, and once again, they compete with each other to try and seduce him. Meanwhile, the AGE explorers go on a quest to find a legendary pornographic treasure and proceed to drag Shusuke away to join them. However, the treasure they find contains zoophilic intercourse that proves too intense for them, and they run away, with Shusuke picking up Nao in town. After watching the fireworks with Nao, Shusuke goes to deliver some BL books to Mayuka, who happens to be wearing a killer yukata. She once again becomes enthralled by his nipples, and her BL fantasies kick in and pin him down on the bench under the moonlight. While on his usual night strolls, Shusuke spots a sexy cosplayer named Ron on top of a vending machine. He later sees Ron, who calls herself Princess Leela at school. She invites him and his friends to the rooftop. There she claims to be seeking a savior amongst the scum of the earth to defend Mother Earth, with Shusuke and friends believing it to be an initiation for some kind of underground club. Nao and Iroha decide to follow her. They meet her twin sister, Rin, who reveals Ron is using her peculiar method to find a partner. While Rin manages to scare off the other AGE explorers, Shusuke goes alone to an awakening ceremony, which ends up being a lap dance. It gets cut when Shusuke hears Nao's crying, leading him to run off with Ron, while questioning his sanity, which leads Ron to believe that he is her savior. Meanwhile, Rin appears and shows romantic interest in Nao, now that Ron is preoccupied. As Shusuke puts up with more of Ron's dubious rituals, Rin forces Nao to hang out with her by threatening to tell Shusuke that she had been stalking him, looking for an opportunity to kiss her. Shusuke and Nao soon become paranoid around each other when they see each other hanging around their respective Yatagi sister. Nao and Iroha determine that the only way to get Rin off her back is to convince Ron that Shusuke isn't her savior by pretending to be prophets on their mobile phones. Rin catches on to their plan and tries to get the drop on Nao, but ends up kissing Iroha instead, though she immediately takes a liking to her lips and runs off with her. Ron later explains to Nao that she wanted to mentally train Shusuke to play as a warrior for a cosplay event. Though, when the day of the event arrives, Shusuke gets the address wrong and is arrested for wearing his skimpy outfit in public. The next day comes, and Shusuke is left alone with Nao in the house when their parents go on an overnight trip. Nao takes the opportunity to try and seduce Shusuke by wearing a maid's outfit as he tries to prepare dinner. After washing up after a little accident in the kitchen, the two become paranoid when Nao starts hearing strange noises, which turns out to be the AGE explorers, who invite Shusuke out on an unsuccessful search for quote-unquote treasures. This trip also gives him a cold. As Nao tends to it, Iroha and Mayuka pay a visit, which once again turns into a battle for his attention. After the battle ends, the best girl leaves along with the twin-tailed chick, leaving Nao behind to look over him until she falls asleep. When she wakes up, we find out our boy is still sick, but a little bit better, so Nao tells him to stay in bed before leaving for school. That's when Shusuke calls her, and thanks Nao for taking care of him in return. She says, ironically, "I don't like you, big brother," ending the story with the series name.